Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Jackson, and I am here to speak with yet another amazing author. We have Tracey Fletcher. She is the author of, this is her first book, Feminine Shades, and we're going to talk to her about her book. The great thing is she's in Nigeria, and I'm in New Orleans. So I'm just so excited to have her here. And that's why we're doing this so early because we know that, I know a lot of you are at work and some of you are at work on one computer and watching your Facebook on the other computer. I understand how that works. So I'm hoping that you're out there and you're listening and you're paying attention and you get an opportunity to talk with us through our chat box. We also ask before we get into the interview that you will take some time to share this on your personal Facebook page. That's very important to us because when you share it, we get more viewers, more people looking at the Black Writers Workspace, and also an opportunity to get more of our books sold because we want to get and connect with those book lovers. So, Tracey,
Mhm.
we are excited to
Yeah,
have you. We
and
have a
I'm
little bit
glad
of
to be
delay.
here.
So everybody just know that, and we have a little bit of delay, but we want to get to know you. So tell us about your work and tell us about your book.
Okay. My name is Tracey Chizoba Fletcher. Chizoba is my native name. It's my Igbo name, and Chizoba means God protect. I'm a columnist, a voiceover artist, and an editor. And Feminine Shades happens to be my first published book. It was published last year on the 11th of September. It's traditionally published. The publishing house goes by the name of Phoenix Awards Books Publications. And so far, it's been good. I've been happy with what I've been seeing where Feminine Shades is concerned. And I'm so grateful for all of the reception that it's gotten so far.
Well, it's so amazing to have you here from such a long ways. Our Black Writers Workspace has just grown so
Yes.
much. We have so many people from across the country, across the globe, that have decided
Yeah.
to be a part of this community. And we have over 3,000. I think we're now to 3,300 people. And I started the Black Writers Workspace last March. So to have that many
Wow.
followers and just continuously growing is great. But I was so excited to talk to you because you're talking about issues that I am passionate about, which is women empowerment. So,
Mm,
your book, Feminine Shades,
yeah.
tackles the intimate details of an average woman. And I love the idea of talking about an average woman. So we're talking,
Okay.
when we say average woman, we're talking about issues around love and self-worth
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
just how we see ourselves, how the world sees us. Talk to me about the
Yes.
character in your book that best helped to inspire you as a writer and as a woman.
Let me say this first of all. Two of the stories, because Feminine Shades is made up of seven stories. Now, two of the stories, Rising from Ashes and My Doppelganger, were written at two very different times. I actually submitted them for two different writing competitions. But at the end of the day, the two stories were not, picked. And I felt the usual thing that happens to a writer when your story is not picked and you feel rejected and all of that. And then at some point, I realized the fact that there was something about these two stories. They had a theme, and that was all about femininity. And then it occurred to me, oh, Tracy, these stories are not worthless. The fact that they didn't win this competition doesn't mean you can't do something with this. And then that triggered the idea for me to write stories that, were central to the female gender. And then I sat down and I said to myself, what are the central topics, that greatly affects an average woman? And then when I sat down, the first one, Rising from Ashes, as we keep on, I'll talk about all of the characters one by one. And then when I sat down, I remember I had a list, a sheet of paper in front of me. And then I began to say to myself, what are the major things that affect a woman? And then when I sat down and I put my list down, from there, I began to build up the stories, and that was how the other five stories were birthed. And then I wrote this over a course of 1 year because they came at different points in time. I wrote them over a course of 1 year, and then by I think that was about February or March last year, Feminine Shades was ready. So what I would like to say precisely here is that these two stories were stories that came out from nothing, and today those two stories have birthed Feminine Shades.
And that's so wonderful about it. I love that it's a collaboration and that it's a combination of short
Yeah,
stories, because
yeah,
I think short stories are a great way to really hone in on a particular topic and
yeah,
explore it in a short way. And so many of us aren't, long book readers. We like that short story
mm,
opportunity. And so that is so great. But
yeah,
like those two stories that you wrote, tell us a little
yeah.
bit about the characters in them and how those characters are reflective of who you are as a person.
Okay, take for example, the first one is Rising from Ashes. Now, Rising from Ashes talks about Ineka. Now, Ineka happens to come from an abusive background. Her father, beats up on her mother,
Mm.
doesn't show love, doesn't show attention, especially with the fact that she's a female child. And so at some point in time, the mother says, "Oh, I can no longer take this anymore." When the father loses his job, and then the mother has to take over all of the responsibilities. And even with that, she's not being appreciated. And then the mother at some point says, "No, I can't do this anymore. I have to leave this marriage for my mental health." And then Ineka decides to leave with her mother because she feels there's no point staying back with a father who isn't even bothered about what's happening to her. And then Ineka, lives with her mother. And of course, the mother doesn't have anywhere to go to. So the mother goes back to her own father. And then by the time they get there, they realize the fact that it's like going from what we say here in Nigeria, they say going from fry pan to fire. By the time she goes there, she meets a father who is not even interested in what has happened to his daughter, but it's like, why do you want to bring disgrace on my family? I married you off. Why should you be coming back to my house? Whatever it is your husband is doing to you, you should remain there, and suffer it. And so at that point, Ineke has like, what have I entered? I have a father who doesn't care about me and a grandfather who is equally treating me the same way. And then she tries to, do something for herself, but it's very difficult because she's just starting out. And before she knows it, her grandfather marries her off to an older man who equally treats her like a slave,
Mm.
and at some point, in a fit of rage, she kills him accidentally and she's made to face the justice system. But then she now has an NGO come to plead her case. And eventually, when she leaves, this NGO provide her support. They provide her support, they give her a home, and for the first time, she feels like she's part of something. They give her that foundation, that home, that affection that she's been struggling to get for a very long time. And eventually, it works out for her because it gives her the courage to go back to her past to find out what it is that made her father who he is. Because there's something I believe in. I believe that nobody is born bad. Nobody is born to be a wicked person. Something always happens to make us turn out to be who it is that we turn out to be. It could be environmental factors, it could be societal factors, it could be factors from our family, where we are coming from. And then Neka realized that for her to get herself, for her to, find her own person, she needed to understand what made her father who he was.
Mm.
And then that foundation gave her the courage to go back to her father. And fortunately for her, she met a man who was willing to open himself up and explain to her, what had made him who he was. And then forgiveness reigned, and then peace reigned. And what I like to say most especially in the world of today, because when I say an average woman, I was trying to talk about topics that affect us on an everyday basis. Now
Mhm.
we have families who are going through a lot all over the world. We have families that are breaking up. And then when they break up, we have children who are suffering a lot of emotional and psychological damage. And then these children grew up to become adults. They grew up to become adults and they still have these issues that they haven't sorted out. So, what I was trying to prove with Rising from Ashes is that until we visit our past, until we understand what has happened to the people before us, and until we reach closure, we cannot achieve that good health and sound mind that we want. In fact, until we achieve forgiveness, until we reach that point where we forgive and let go and allow healing to reign in our lives, only then will we see positivity. That was what I was trying to bring out with Rising from Ashes. Now, doppelganger is a very classic thing that we see, especially in this part of the world where I live. This is Africa, and we have this gap. We have the rich and then we have the poor. In fact, here in Africa, you can't say you have the middle class. You have the rich and you have the poor. And then we have cases where, I try to bring two female characters in this story, my doppelganger. One is a young Nigerian girl named Amaka, and then the other is Debbie, who's an American girl. And Amaka's father happens to work in a compound that's just opposite where Debbie is leaving. And so eventually what happens is that these two young girls get to meet themselves. But then how are they able to go beyond the societal, the racial differences? How are they able to combine their strengths to be friends? And that was what I was trying to do with Doppelganger, trying to show that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your skin color. It doesn't matter how much you have in your pocket, but it shouldn't stop you from being friends with who you should be with. The color of your skin, what you have, shouldn't stop you from achieving your dreams. And Amaka and Debbie were able to prove through my story in my doppelganger. That's why I called it my doppelganger, because they called themselves allies. They were allies, they were friends, and then they came together to overcome those differences and say, oh, yes, we can achieve these things. So I would like to say that it isn't is reflective of me to a certain extent, but it's more reflective of the society that I live in. Because here we have this mindset where this person is rich. I'm not going to allow my children move with this person. We're poor. How are we supposed to align with these people? We don't have the same views. We don't have the same standards. I don't want anybody looking down on my children or whatever. And I was trying to show to parents and to children as well that you shouldn't limit. You shouldn't limit. You should let things be. You should let your children be. You should allow such partnerships. And Amaka and Debbie were able to prove in that story that they could put their differences aside, bring their strengths together, and achieve that which they wanted to do, which eventually they were able to do by opening their own free legal advice clinic. So basically, my story is reflective of the story of the society that I live in. And one thing that I was afraid for was, I said to myself, yes, even though these stories are reflective of the society that I live in, would it be received all over the world? But I've had reviews and people send me message, oh, this stories really spoke to my soul. This is exactly what I see happening around me as well. And we thank you, Tracy, for writing these stories. And when I see such reviews, it really makes me feel good.
Well, Tracy, I thank you for giving us such an amazing description of your stories within a story. So you have seven
Yes.
short stories that make up the feminine shades. And what I love so
Yes.
much about the book and about your title is that when you're talking feminine shades, you're not necessarily simply talking about the shades of our skin,
Mhm.
but just the
Yes.
complexities, the different complexities of life in
Yes.
women. And so I want to
Yes.
talk a little bit about femininity and about women on an international level, global
Level.
level. Um,
Okay.
how is it? I mean, your characters, and you just really, dug deep into how you develop and why those characters are important to you. But as
Yes.
an African in Africa, as an African American here in the States, we are constantly faced with many challenges that are
Yes.
our challenges. I was just thinking this morning when I was preparing for this interview, is that I am so committed. I want to see us
Mhm.
as women, as Black women, love ourselves more. You know, I want us to love ourselves more because there's so many things that we see that teach us that who we are is not good or right. You know, our waistlines are too big. Our skin is either too dark or too light. Our attitudes are bad. Our
Mm,
passions are wrong. We don't love right.
mm,
Society teaches us that subliminally. It really does. I mean, you look at TV, everybody doesn't, people don't look like you. Your stories,
yes.
for instance, with writing, and something I've learned is that as a writer, a lot of our stories go overlooked by the mainstream because there's an assumption that the world doesn't care to hear the stories of Black people. How do you feel
Mm,
about that? And how do we overcome these hurdles to get to a place where we are loving ourselves just as we are? And you may have a
mm,
character in your book that speaks to this, but I
yeah.
want to talk to you about how do we learn to love ourselves just as we are?
I would say that it starts from the mindset.
Hmm.
It starts from the mindset. The society we live in today, we're faced with social media, and social media has become a tool that is used to, I would like to use the word destabilize. It's become a tool that's used to destabilize our emotions. We see things, and we say to ourselves, "Ah, can I be beautiful like that person? Look at
Hmm.
that beautiful skin. Can I be like this? Oh, I have got to be this slim. I've got to do this and do that." And I think the most important thing is to change your mindset and believe in the fact that you should love yourself. First of all, I believe I'm a Christian, so I'm going to, speak in religious terms. First of all, the God that created you just the way you are. And he created you because he felt that was the best for you. So now when you begin to think that, you have to be different in order to love yourself, you're doing yourself more harm than good. And you did pinpoint the fact that I may have one of my characters in my book, face that. And that's the truth. In one of the stories, that's called the yellow. In fact, oh, that's so interesting. Now, the name of that short story is yellow purple syndrome, because it's something that we face here in Nigeria. You see a girl who's dark today, very beautiful ebony complexion, and then you see her the next day and she's just pure white. We call it yellow purple here because she's decided to go bleach her skin.
Oh,
And so in
wow.
one of my stories, yes, in one of my stories, Yellow Purple Syndrome, I tried to mix two things here. I tried to combine two things here. This was a young lady, this was a spinster. Her friends were all married, and then she said to herself, "Oh, why is it that I'm not married?" No, it was beginning to affect her psychologically, and then she was off social media for so long because she didn't want to see what was happening in the lives of her friends. But one day she decides to turn on her Facebook, and then she begins to see notifications of some other friends that have gotten married, and it gets to her, and then she asks herself, "What is it that these people are doing that I'm not doing?" And then she says, "Oh, they're all light skinned, and I'm not light skinned. Oh, could that be the reason why I've not gotten married?" This was her reason. And then she decided, in this my story, then she decided to start bleaching her skin. And then her business began to fail because she was using all of her profits and everything to buy these very expensive creams and mixing them all together so her skin color could change. And yes, it began to change, but now there was a problem because she was using things that were too harsh for her skin. Guess what happened? She began to have reactions on her body. And so when she began to have these reactions, it even made it worse for her. Her business was failing. There was no money to inject into her business anymore. Her confidence suffered. It suffered a great deal. It went down, and then she became depressed. So what she felt was actually the answer to her problem. eventually wasn't. She felt that she had to change her skin to be loved. She felt she had to change her skin to be appreciated. But at the end of it all, that wasn't it. Now, what I feel is the answer to this is we need to love ourselves. Nobody's going to love you except you love yourself. The minute you choose to not love yourself, you make yourself available. You make yourself available for people to take advantage of you with their thoughts and with their actions. But when you know who you are and you believe in who you are and you appreciate who you are and you love yourself, I don't think there's anything anybody will throw at you, be it from the social media, be it from what you see when you go to work or when you go to church or when you go to school, whatever it is anybody throws at you, you can't be able to say back at them, I love myself for who I am.
Wonderfully said. I grew up in a world that wasn't consumed with social media, and so
Okay?
I completely understand how difficult it is for a young
Mm-hmm.
girl who are growing up in a world where the camera is always on them in many ways, and people can criticize them and put them down, and
Yes.
you feel, first of all, growing up, even in your 20s, I mean, teens and 20s are just really sensitive years when it comes to your self-confidence. And we see so
Yes.
many of our young girls turning to trying to look like someone else,
Exactly.
focus on the filters, and trying to be someone else because that's what they're seeing. And it's all the time, it's 24 hours a day because of social media. So we as older women should do our part to make sure that as we learn to continue to learn to love ourselves, that we are also teaching this younger generation to love
To
themselves. You
myself
don't
too.
need anything extra. Just as you said, and
Yes.
I 100% agree, God made you just the way you should be, and
Mm.
He makes no mistakes. So that's
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful thing. Let's turn now to
Yeah.
talk about your book publishing. You mentioned the publishing company. Talk to us
Yeah.
about how you published and a little bit about your marketing for your book.
Okay. At first when I, started to actually, Feminine Shades isn't the first book I've written, although it's the first book that got published. It's actually the sixth book that I've written. And I remember when I started off, I was, filled with so much questions. How do I get this published? What do I do? It was even when I published my book that I in September that I realized the fact, oh, that there were Facebook writing groups that you could actually join and ask questions and have people walk you through things that you should do. I didn't know then. I had nobody to ask. And it was a very tough time because I was wondering how to go about it. But suddenly, I just saw this, advert on Facebook as well. And it was the publishing house. And I reached out to them, especially. I just felt moved to send feminine shades to them. I had other stories, but I was moved to send feminine shades. I don't know why. I think maybe I would like to say that I felt that the messages in feminine shades had to be out there for people to see. And so I sent it to them and I was like, would they accept short stories? Because some people will come out and tell you, oh, publishing houses don't want to publish short stories. They want to publish novels. But, they accepted it. And then I really give kudos to self-published authors, people who, they write and then they format and then they put everything together. It's a lot. It's a lot. But I just felt to myself, I need somebody else to take care of that for me. Somebody else to do the formatting, somebody else to upload it for me. Let somebody take that, burden away. And so I was happy when they were able to do that for me. And the day I got the message and your book is now available on Amazon and what it was, I can't explain how I felt. It was a beautiful feeling. Oh yes, I am now a published author. Now marketing. There's a lot of how do I put it now? People like to be so pessimistic and say, oh, there is sea of books. How do you get your book noticed? How do people get to buy your book? And this and that. There's a whole lot. Sometimes I want to go check out those Facebook groups, but when I remember what I'm going to see there, how people complain and complain and complain, I say no. It's people are complaining. Oh, I'm writing, I'm not making anything out of it. I want to give up. I want to throw in the towel. I want to do this. I want to do that. But I said to myself, in spite of that negativity, in spite of the pessimism, I choose to be positive. And no matter what it is, I will do my best to make sure that I market my book. And so I began, what did I do? I began looking for interviews, just like this. I began looking for interviews, ways to, get my book out there. So I didn't depend on the publishing house. I didn't say, oh, because I'm traditionally published, I'm going to leave all the work for the publishing house. No, I've been doing my bit every day. In fact, I made it a personal assignment. Every day, I dedicate a number of hours that I spend towards getting my book out there and making sure that people are aware of it. And it's been doing well for me. It's
Well,
been
that is
doing well for
excellent. I want to stop right here and just, if we have any questions, please put them in the on the comment in the comment box so we can ask those questions. We're so excited to have you here. We also have Tracey's website at the bottom of the screen. So if you're interested in purchasing her book, please go to her website. We really would love for you to do that. Tracey, are you still
me.
there?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, great. Your picture is frozen a little bit on me, so I wasn't sure if you were still
Yes,
there, but
I can. I'm still here.
okay. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we're excited to know you and excited to hear about your work. Something you said that makes me want to just nudge you a bit, and that is that you have 5 unpublished books. So I'm going to
Yeah.
trust that you're going to start publishing all those books, right? Is that the goal?
Oh, yeah, that's the good news that I have. One of my books is coming out very soon.
Hmm.
Pending publications in the US. That's my fantasy fiction. So it should be coming out, if not before the end of this month, then early next month. And then one other book, that's The Chase, was shortlisted for Phoenix Quill Writing Competition. That was last year, and is equally set to be published. So I would say within the next 1 month, 2 other books are coming out. That's The Wrong Turn, my fantasy fiction, and The Chase, which is an action thriller.
Well, that is so great. Well, we want to thank you so much for being a part of the BWW. Continue to connect with the other writers. I hope that you've been getting a lot of positive feedback on the page. I'm so excited
Yes,
to
I
have you here. Tracey is in Nigeria. She's writing phenomenal books about feminine empowerment, women, and all the things that we are experiencing in our lives and how to move forward. She's a positive soul doing great work. And I just want to thank you so much for being here with us. You take care and
thank
have
you
a
so
great
much.
day, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you.